The auction of the damned. No one noticed the girl collapse at first. In the lower districts of Velmora, where torchlight barely reached the cracked stone streets, bodies were common. Broken people. Forgotten people. Humans who had learned to survive quietly under vampire rule. The girl lay curled near an alley wall, her thin coat soaked from the freezing rain, her dark hair tangled and heavy against her face. She had not eaten in 2 days. Her hands shook, not from fear but exhaustion. Her name was Elira. She had once been someone's daughter. Someone's pride. Now she was only another human. A scream shattered the night. Vampire guards dragged a wounded boy into the square, laughing as his blood stained the stones. He had stolen bread. A crime punishable by death. Elira didn't think. She never did when someone was hurting. She stepped forward. "Please," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "He's just a child." The guards froze, then laughed harder. One struck her across the face. She fell, but she didn't crawl away. She shielded the boy with her body, her arms thin but determined. "Take me instead." The crowd watched. No one helped. That was when they called her mad. They chained her hands. Dragged her through the streets. Someone spat on her. Someone else threw a stone. Elira didn't cry. She just whispered something over and over again, words no one understood. "The stars remember, the stars remember." By dawn, she stood on a wooden platform in the court of chains. The auction ground. Here, criminals, debtors, and unwanted humans were sold to vampires who wanted servants, blood dolls, or worse. Elira stood barefoot among hardened men and broken women, her wrists bruised by iron, her eyes downcast. The auctioneer sneered. "Next, this one. A useless madwoman. Claims the stars speak to her." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "5 silver," someone joked. "No bits," the auctioneer scoffed. "Then she dies at sunset." Elira lifted her head. Her gaze drifted through the crowd, then stopped. A noble woman stood at the edge of the square, cloaked in black velvet. Her posture was regal. Her presence, heavy. The air itself seemed to bend around her. Queen Nyxera of Nocturne. Ruler of the vampire realm. Cold. Untouchable. Fear. She had come in disguise, as she often did, to remind herself why mercy was weakness. But when Elira's eyes met hers, something shifted. There was no fear in the girl's gaze. Only tired kindness. A small child nearby began to cry. Without hesitation, Elira turned, broke off the last piece of bread hidden in her sleeve, and dropped it gently near him before guards shoved her back. Nyxera felt it then. A sharp, unfamiliar pull in her chest. "Going once," the auctioneer called. Silence. Nyxera should have turned away. She didn't. "Stop." The single word sliced through the square. Every vampire froze. Nyxera stepped forward, lowering her hood just enough for her necklace to catch the light, black diamonds glowing with ancient authority. "I will buy her." Gasps erupted. "A human?" someone whispered. "Why?" The auctioneer bowed so low his forehead hit the platform. "Your Majesty." "I said her," Nyxera repeated calmly. "Now." Chains were unlocked. Elira stumbled forward, confused, afraid. As guards pulled her down, she leaned close, too close, and whispered, so softly only the queen could hear. "You were stolen light, but it still knows your name." Nyxera's breath caught. The girl was dragged away. The crowd dispersed. But the vampire queen remained frozen, staring at the empty platform, her heart, dead for centuries, beating once. Art. Far above, the stars burned brighter than they had in 1,000 years. And somewhere in the darkness, fate began to move. The girl in the north tower. Elira expected darkness. When the iron gates of Castle Nocturne closed behind her, she braced herself for chains, blood, or a cold cell beneath the earth. That was what happened to humans bought by vampires. Everyone knew that. But instead she was led upward. Higher and higher, past winding staircases and stained glass windows that glowed faintly with moonlight. The guards were silent, their expressions tense, as if they feared the place they were taking her to. When they stopped, Elira looked up. The North Tower. No human had ever entered it and lived long enough to speak of it. The iron door creaked open. Warm firelight spilled out, soft and impossible in a castle built for shadows. Inside, a guard muttered, refusing to meet her eyes. The door closed behind her with a heavy clang. Elira stood alone. The chamber was round, lined with ancient stone, a single narrow window overlooking the sleeping city. A fire burned in the hearth. A thick blanket lay folded on a chair. Bread and water waited on a small table. This was not a prison. It was a room prepared, thoughtfully. Her knees weakened. She sank to the floor, pressing her forehead to the cold stone. "Thank you," she whispered to no one. Hours passed. Or minutes. Time felt strange here. Then the air changed. Alira felt it before she heard it. The pressure, the stillness, the way the fire bent as if bowing. She turned. Queen Nixera stood in the doorway. Uncloaked. Unhidden. Moonlight poured over her silver-white hair, her pale skin untouched by age. Her eyes, ancient, sharp, endlessly tired, studied Alira like a blade testing its edge. "Stand," the queen said. Alira rose quickly, lowering her gaze. "You are not afraid," Nixera observed. "I am," Alira replied softly. "But fear doesn't stop pain." Something flickered behind the queen's eyes. Nixera circled her slowly. "You interfered with my guards. You cost them blood. Why?" Alira swallowed. "Because no one else would help. You knew you would be punished." "Yes." "Then why?" Alira lifted her eyes for the first time. They were dark, steady, honest. "Because someone once saved me," she said. "And I promised the stars I would do the same whenever I could." The room went very quiet. Nixera laughed, once, cold, disbelieving. "The stars," she repeated. "That is why they call you mad." Alira didn't argue. Instead, she reached into her torn sleeve and pulled out something small. Crude. Wooden. A charm carved into the shape of a sun. "My father made it," she said, "before the collectors took him. He said even monsters came from light once." Nixera's breath stopped. For a heartbeat, the room trembled. "Enough," the queen said sharply, turning away. "You will serve in this tower. You will speak to no one. You will touch nothing without permission." Alira bowed deeply. "Thank you for not killing me." Nixera paused at the door. "You should hate me," she said. "My kind destroyed your life." Alira's voice was barely a whisper. "Hatred is heavy. I've carried enough already." The door closed. Nixera did not move for a long time. In her private chambers, the queen stared at her reflection, at the black diamond necklace at her throat, the one that never dimmed no matter how long she wore it. That night, Nixera dreamed. She stood beneath a golden sky. A child laughed somewhere behind her. Stars bent low, whispering her name, not Nixera but something older. Forgotten. She woke before dawn, her chest aching. Days passed. Alira cleaned the tower quietly. She sang softly while she worked, songs in no known language, melodies that made the stones hum. Nixera told herself it meant nothing. Yet she found herself returning, watching Alira tend the fire, noticing how she winced at sudden sounds, how she flinched when hands moved too fast. One night, Nixera saw it. A cut on Alira's palm, infected, angry. "Why didn't you ask for help?" the queen demanded. Alira shrugged weakly. "Humans aren't supposed to bother queens." Nixera took her hand. The touch was electric. Golden light flickered beneath Alira's skin, faint, real. Nixera froze. "What are you?" she whispered. Alira looked just as afraid. "I don't know." Outside, unseen, ancient forces stirred. The stars watched. And in the North Tower, the first crack appeared in the world's oldest lie. The secret in her blood. The wound should have healed by morning. Nixera knew that much. Human flesh was fragile. Infection spread quickly. Pain lingered. That was the natural order, one the vampire world had relied upon for centuries. But when Nixera returned to the North Tower at dawn, Alira stood at the window, sunlight brushing her skin. Unburned. Unharmed. Nixera stopped cold. No human survived direct dawnlight inside Castle Nocturne. Even vampires avoided it. Yet Alira turned calmly, confusion on her face, the cut on her palm, gone. "Did you touch the window?" Nixera demanded. Alira nodded. "I wanted to see the city when it's quiet." The queen crossed the room in a blur and seized her wrist, turning her hand over. Smooth skin. No scar. No mark. That was impossible. "You should be dead," Nixera whispered. Alira's lips trembled. "I thought so too." The air thickened. Nixera released her, stepping back as memories surfaced, old ones. Forbidden ones. Tales erased from vampire history. Creatures born of mixed light. Half mortal. Half something older. Nixera ordered the tower sealed. That night, the council gathered. High Lord Varson stood first, his crimson eyes sharp with suspicion. "You brought a human into sacred space. The city whispers." Nixera said nothing. "She survived dawnlight," Varson continued. "That means she is a threat. A curiosity," another lord sneered. "Bleed her. Test her." Nixera's voice dropped. Touch her and you die. Silence fell. Later, in the shadows beyond the council hall, Nyxera sensed movement. Steel flashed. An assassin lunged. She caught him mid-air, crushing his throat. The mark on his wrist glowed red, the sigil of the Crimson Order, a vampire cult that hunted forbidden bloodlines. They know, Nyxera whispered. The tower alarms rang. Nyxera reached Elira just as black-cloaked figures breached the chamber. Stay behind me, Nyxera ordered. Elira didn't. When a blade flew toward the queen's back, Elira screamed and raised her hand. Light exploded outward. Not fire. Not magic. Starlight. The assassins were thrown back, screaming as their shadows burned into the walls. The castle shook. The fire roared white. Nyxera turned slowly. Elira stood frozen, glowing faintly, her eyes wide with terror. I didn't mean to, she whispered. I just didn't want you hurt. The assassins fled. Nyxera approached her carefully, reverently. You protected me. Elira collapsed into her arms. That night, Nyxera told her the truth. About the legends. About children born before vampires ruled. About light sealed into flesh. You were never mad, Nyxera said quietly. You were hidden. Tears streamed down Elira's face. Then why does everyone hate me? Nyxera lifted her chin gently. Because power frightens those who rule by fear. Elira shook. I don't want power. Nyxera's voice softened. Neither did I. Outside the tower, the stars burned brighter. The Crimson Order retreated, for now. But war had been declared. And Elira's blood had awakened something the world had tried to bury. The Queen's impossible choice. The city of Velmora woke to fear. Whispers moved faster than shadows. Doors stayed shut. Humans hid indoors while vampires gathered in hushed circles, their eyes burning with suspicion. The secret was out. A girl who survived sunlight. A human whose blood glowed. A weapon, or a queen. Nyxera stood on the high balcony of Castle Nocturne, watching the streets below. For the first time in centuries, her rule felt fragile. Behind her, the council chamber erupted in fury. She must die. High Lord Varson roared. The Crimson Order is already mobilizing. If we do not offer her blood as proof of loyalty, they will declare war. Nyxera turned slowly, her eyes glacial. You dare demand sacrifice from my castle? She is not one of us, another lord spat. She is a mistake. Nyxera's fingers tightened around the stone railing. She said nothing, but the shadows around her twisted, responding to her rage. That night she returned to the North Tower. Elira sat on the floor, knees drawn to her chest, clutching the wooden sun charm. She looked smaller somehow. Quieter. They're afraid of me, Elira said before Nyxera could speak. Nyxera closed the door carefully. They are afraid of losing power. Elira smiled sadly. That's what my mother used to say. Nyxera froze. You remember her? In dreams, Elira whispered. She sang to me. In a language I don't know, but somehow understand. Nyxera knelt in front of her. Elira, if I tell you to leave tonight, will you? Elira stared. You're sending me away? I may not be able to protect you much longer. Silence stretched. Then Elira shook her head. No. Nyxera frowned. You will die if you stay. Elira met her gaze, eyes steady. Then I'll die knowing someone finally stood for me. Something inside Nyxera broke. She had ruled with fear. With distance. With sacrifice. That was the vampire way. But this girl, this fragile, impossible girl, had chosen courage over safety. Nyxera rose. Then I will stand with you. The attack came at dawn. The Crimson Order breached the outer gates, cloaked in ritual armor, chanting ancient curses. Vampire lords turned on each other. Blood-stained marble halls. Varson betrayed her. He opened the North Tower. Nyxera arrived too late. Elira stood surrounded, chains of dark magic binding her arms. The Crimson High Priest smiled. She belongs to the old blood, he hissed. And she will die to restore balance. Nyxera stepped forward alone. Release her, she commanded. The priest laughed. Choose Queen of Night. Your throne, or the girl. The castle trembled. Nyxera looked at Elira, terrified, shaking but still trying to stand tall. For centuries Nyxera had chosen the throne. This time she didn't. She removed her crown and let it fall. I choose her. Golden light erupted from Elira's chest. The chains shattered. The sky split with thunder as ancient symbols burned into the air. Nyxera stood before Elira, arms wide, unafraid. Touch her, she said calmly, and face what I truly am. The Crimson Order fled in terror. Varsan was seized by the shadows he once commanded. Silence followed. Elira collapsed into Nixera's arms. "You gave up everything," Elira whispered. Nixera held her close, resting her forehead against hers. "No. I finally chose what mattered." Above them the stars aligned. The old world cracked, and something new began to rise. The girl the world called Mad. The night after the battle was unnaturally quiet. No alarms. No screams. No chanting cultists. Velmora waited, holding its breath. Nixera stood beside Elira on the highest balcony of Castle Nocturne. Below them, vampires and humans gathered together in the square for the first time in centuries. No chains. No guards with weapons drawn. Only uncertainty. Elira's hands trembled. "They're staring at me." "They are seeing truth," Nixera replied. For the first time. At dawn Nixera addressed them all. "The age of rule by fear ends tonight," she declared. "The Crimson Order is broken. Their leaders will face judgment, not execution but exile. No more blood cults. No more children hunted for what they are." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Then Nixera did something no vampire ruler had ever done. She knelt. Gasps erupted. Nixera lowered herself before Elira, bowing her head. "I was crowned Queen of Night by conquest," she said. "But I stand today before the one chosen by the stars themselves." Elira stepped back, panicked. "Nixera, please." "You were hunted," Nixera continued. "Humiliated. Called mad. Yet you never chose cruelty. You never chose revenge." She lifted her gaze. "That is true power." The sky changed. Clouds parted as golden light poured down, not burning, not violent, but warm. The same light Elira had carried unknowingly her entire life. The crowd fell to their knees. Memories surged through Elira, her mother's voice, her father's laughter, a promise whispered before time fractured. She spoke, not loudly but clearly. "I don't want a throne built on suffering," Elira said. "If I rule, it will be to protect. Humans and vampires. Together." The light responded. Ancient symbols ignited in the air, older than vampirism itself. Nixera felt it then, the truth she had always sensed. Elira was not merely gifted. She was born of royal celestial blood, sealed into mortality to survive an ancient war. The stars had waited for her kindness to awaken what power alone never could. The court bowed. Later, in the quiet of the North Tower, Elira sat by the fire, overwhelmed. "I was nothing," she whispered. "A homeless girl." Nixera knelt beside her. "You were never nothing. The world just forgot how to see." Elira hesitated. "And you? You gave up your crown." Nixera smiled faintly. "I gained something greater." She reached for Elira's hand, not possessively, not urgently. Just there. For the first time Elira didn't pull away. Their fingers intertwined. No kiss. No declaration. Just warmth. Weeks passed. Velmora changed. Human children attended schools within the castle walls. Blood tithes were replaced with voluntary exchange. Vampires who abused power were stripped of rank. Justice, quiet, steady, took root. One evening Elira stood before the mirror in the tower. She wore no crown. No jewels. Just the wooden sun charm. Nixera appeared behind her. "They call you the Starborn Queen." Elira laughed softly. "I still feel like the girl from the alley." Nixera stepped closer. "And I still feel like the monster you chose not to fear." Elira turned. "I never feared you," she said gently. "I saw you." Nixera leaned in, resting her forehead against Elira's. In the distance, stars burned steadily, no longer watching. They were home.